Hi everyone and welcome to the FantasyFootballFix.com YouTube channel with me, Tom Campbell. I'm so excited to say that in this week's video we've got another elite manager who's going to talk us through their Game Week 1 team. So without further ado guys, let's get right into it. Guys, welcome back to the channel with me, Tom Campbell. You can find me on Twitter at UtterlyTC. Now, I just want to thank you all for your amazing comments last week. We had a great video with Dan Bennett. I want to thank Dan again for coming on the channel and recording his thoughts as we were leading up to Game Week 1. You guys really seemed to enjoy that with all of your comments and the likes on the video. So thank you all, and thank you very much to Dan. And in this week's video, we have got another elite manager, one of our elite series of managers that we've got on the site over at FantasyFootballFix.com that you can go and check out. And today we have got Corey Baker. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen here, guys. Look at that record. That is something that I am aspiring to right now. You can see a best ever finish, guys, in the top 1,000, 897 a few seasons ago. Top 5K finishes, we're looking at 4. We've got top 10K finishes. He's also had 4 there. So, Corey, welcome to the channel, man. What a record. You must be super proud of that.
Yeah, I think I've done pretty well, given things. My record doesn't show the times I've been in the top 500 and blown it late, but I think I've done pretty well throughout my career.
No kidding. That is a great record. And look, Corey, it says on the slide there that we had prepped your playing style. You look for players with strong underlying data. Now that is music to my ears. You'll remember from last season, guys, the FantasyFootballFix.com videos that I did on stats and the like. So it's great to see that Corey is an advocate for that. You play conservatively, Corey, with rotation risk players. We want to talk to you about that. And you're also saying about minimizing early transfers and hits, but willing to be more aggressive if the situation arises. Do you want to expand on that? What do you mean by the situation arises? What would be a situation that would encourage you to be a little bit more risky?
Yeah, I think it a lot depends on in the current state, the manner of the pandemic and how much risk we have with that. But in a typical year, if I were on, just had enough money for maybe a double transfer that I could get priced out of, I might potentially make a move, say, before a midweight cup tie. But it would have to be something that I really, really wanted and we're almost certain to miss out on. So usually I'm almost always going to wait till Friday. Being in the U.S., my transfers are usually Friday night here, which would be early Saturday in the U.K.
I see.
And I'm almost always waiting for Friday night before I log off for bed to make those transfers.
Yeah, I see. So it's something that we folks in the UK don't have to deal with, these awkward times, I guess, for anyone watching abroad. Drop a comment in, guys, if this is something that you have to battle with as well. Of course, me being in the UK, it's not something that I can use as a legitimate reason for not having a record quite as good as Corey's, but no, I do understand it. And look, guys, over on FantasyFootballFix.com, you will know that there are a heap of tools that you can use in relation to those stats. And I'm sure, Corey, that those stats are going to have, influenced your decision. So we're about to look at your Game Week 1 team in a few moments. And the usual caveat, guys, does apply that this is Corey's team right now. We are in the lead up to Game Week 1, one weekend away. I'm so excited for it, guys. And it might well change, Corey, right? But right now we're going to dive in and take a look at the team that you have put together. So without further ado, guys, let's get right in and take a look at that team. Okay, so the first thing we see on screen then, Corey, before we start looking at the actual personnel, is that you have opted for a 4-4-2 formation. Is there anything that you want to talk about in relation to that? Is that a formation that you normally would favor, or are you more kind of traditional 3-4-3 kind of guy?
Traditionally 3-4-3, but I think we've all seen in the last few years that the value and the upside is transitioned from forwards to midfield. Mm-hmm. It remains the same this year, although I think there are some better options this year. But still, I think having more midfielders and forwards is ideal. And then also, obviously, with some of the attacking talent we have at the back now that we didn't necessarily have 7-8 years ago, you almost certainly need to go with a 4-4, at least for the back. So
interesting. Okay, so we'll get right into that. So let's start at the back though, Corey. If we're going to look at the goalkeeper, so reveal him there. We've got you've got a premium goalkeeper there in Ederson at 5.5 million, so you're spending the most that you possibly can. What were your thoughts around selecting Ederson, say, over a Lloris or a Alisson in goal? What's made you opt for him?
Right. So the team is there's basically three spots on my team that are all interdependent, and so it depends on who I'm taking in each. And ideally, I would like to have two $8 million midfielders, but as we'll see, we don't have that. I wasn't able to find the money to do that, and so I thought about doubling up with Diaz and Cancelo on the backside with Man City. But then looking at that would have then had me do a 4-5, probably like Lewis Dunk or someone of that ilk. Yeah. But then looking at it with Arsenal's fixtures and some of the injury and rotation issues, so we have injury issues with Tomiyasu and then Ben White. Ben White, one, having virtually no attacking threat at all.
Yeah, he's not a rampaging fullback, is he? No.
No. And two, potentially rotation issues. I thought the value of having Gabriel at 5 and Ederson at a 5-5 was a better option than Diaz. Yeah, than Diaz and a 4-5 like Sanchez or Raya.
I like it. So just before we look at the defense there, you're talking about Corey as well. Is this a tactic that you would normally look to do season on season and spend big in goal, or are you more traditionally?
Absolutely not. No, I landed on Ederson and Alisson a couple stints last year, but last year was so unique in the double game weeks and everything, and the rotation issues. But usually, I'm a 4-5 guy. Before, say, 2 years ago, I was a double 4-5 rotation guy. But then the last couple, I started out with a 4-5 and a 4. So this is unique.
Big change. Big change.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be doing this at all if it weren't for the extra wild card. And so you're looking at almost certainly pulling the trigger on a wild card in week 6 or week 8 or so, and that allows, I think, to take the short-term value with a premium goalkeeper, and with City's fixtures, it's very, very good.
Interesting. And you never know, man. You might end up keeping him for the whole season, irrespective of
I would be very surprised.
Okay.
I suspect by the time wild card rolls around, the City attack will be a little more clear, and you'll be wanting to put some money into those.
Very
players,
possibly. Very possibly. Okay, cool. Let's move on and take a look at this defense. So you've opted for 4 defenders there. And look, guys, straight away, you can see that Corey is pouring millions of pounds into that defense. So you've opted for Trent Alexander-Arnold. Don't think we need to spend too much time on him. Cancelo, similarly. But you've also got Reece James and Gabriel as well. So lots of money being spent then, Corey. Do you want to talk us through your thought process in terms of that kind of big at the back philosophy and the actual folks that you've selected?
Sure. As I hinted at, Alexander-Arnold, Cancelo, and James are just ridiculously attacking players. And I think it's pretty clear that you have to have multiple attacking defenders to be successful these days.
Cool.
The 4th defender, as I kind of hinted at, I went with Gabriel, which fairly limited upside, I would think, but he's absolutely nailed. He's the only viable left-footed center back on Arsenal. And he does have a very solid set piece threat, and with Arsenal having Palace and Leicester early on, who were terrible last year in set pieces, I think there's a fairly good chance that he might make an attacking return as well. So I strongly considered Perisic, but I'm concerned about rotation there. He's not a spring chicken, and you just wonder how many times he's going to get rotated out. So Perisic was definitely something I could consider. I talked about Diaz. I think Zinchenko's an option, but I do think he has a bit more rotation threat than Gabriel, and I don't actually know that he has that much more attacking threat, honestly. So,
no, I'd go along with that, Corey. I got a couple of thoughts there. So that £5 million sort of bracket. I mean, first of all, I think Arsenal have looked awesome in pre-season. Whether or not you get your thoughts on whether or not that means anything in relation to Game Week 1. So that's kind of question one. But also the £5 million slot there. You've opted for Gabriel. I like your rationale there. There are other options there, aren't there, in terms of like maybe a Lucas Dean or a Matty Cash, somebody like that? Did you look elsewhere in that £5 million kind of range and just settle on this, or is it just someone that you just think the Arsenal early season fixtures, is that what kind of led you there?
Yeah, their fixtures are, by my model, are the best through I think game week 6, and I don't put a lot of emphasis on preseason. I'd say very little, but I do like teams that look to be well settled, look like they have a plan, and Arsenal certainly do look that. So I think that heading into the season, I really fancied them for some clean sheets. Last year, their defensive record was really solid after they transitioned away from some of the old guard into the younger players. Ramsdale was really bad at the end of the year. I don't know if people realize how bad he was. And I think if he would have had his first half form in the second half, they'd be a lot more popular and actually probably more expensive. So, so that's kind of how I landed on Gabriel.
Yeah, I like it. And I like the kind of analysis you've done there in terms of, identifying the opponents being weaker at defending set plays. That's the sort of intricacies and, I guess, elements to the game that people need to think about if they're going to aspire to that type of, rank that that we were showing off a few moments ago. Anyway, Corey, let's move on and take a look at the midfield. I suspect that people might be able to guess who this captaincy is, but let's take a little look and reveal. There we go, guys. So, yeah, no prizes for having guessed that Mo Salah is Corey's captain for game week 1. But alongside that, you've got another Liverpool player in Diaz, who's come in at 8 million. And then you are supplementing that with Martinelli at 6 million and Neto from Wolves at 5.5 million. So I think we can probably say Salah doesn't need a whole lot of conversation, Corey, on this. People know about him and the starting run and the first game week 1 fixture. So maybe not on that. But in terms of Diaz being that third Liverpool player and the more kind of budget options in Martinelli and Neto, do you want to just talk us through what kind of led you to arrive at those three?
Sure, absolutely. So Diaz, I think, is, in my opinion, the best of the $8 million midfields with Jota out for a good amount of time. I think his debut season was maybe a little overstated. I think he had some somewhat fortunate returns, but he was still all around the attacking zone. His penalty box touches were very high, and I Liverpool look fantastic. I actually think they might, in my head, be a touch favorite to win the league this year.
Big shout. Okay.
Yeah, I think City's gonna. We can talk a little bit about that actually. Sure. So talking about that, Mahrez was probably the player I thought most about. But after the Community Shield, especially, he looks like he's still going to be a rotation risk. He's also 32 years old, which I don't know a lot of people know. It seems hard for me to think that he's now going to start getting regular minutes at 32 when he didn't when he was 27 or so. And City, I think, are trying to change their game to focus on Haaland, and I think it's going to take some time for them. I really do. So, Mahrez is out of my thoughts. I think Mount is a great option. I think Saka is a good option. I think Martinelli's maybe a little better value. So, but that $8 million price point in the midst has so many options. It's just a shame that I couldn't figure out a way to fit two of them in. So yeah.
It's really interesting actually, because last week's video with Dan, we were sort of reflecting on Riyad Mahrez and kind of recognizing, when he's on the pitch, he's an awesome FPL asset, and historically that's proven the case. But it's interesting about the age and your observations from the community shield. And so you mentioned Martinelli and the comparison to Saka as well, but 6 million, it's a big saving, isn't it there? And what kind of attracts you to the Martinelli and Neto combination there in terms of your budget options? Did you look elsewhere? Is this just the two standouts for you, or are there anyone else kind of in your thoughts as well?
Right. So at the $6 million point, I don't really see another viable option. Martinelli's playing time issues, I think, are a little overstated. I think if you look at his game time, once they transition away from Aubameyang and really started focusing on the young kids, his playing time was pretty solid. And he's on some corners. He takes the left-sided corners. Sometimes will do occasionally a set piece, but not that often. It's usually Odegaard or Saka. But he's a great asset. I know he was very frustrating for folks at the end of the season last year. I actually ended up never owning him. It just never really worked out for me. But I was interested in him last year. So for me, I think he's a great option. And again, with those fixtures to start with in an early wild card, I don't see a lot of risk.
So you've got visions of a Martinelli assist to the Gabriel nodding in. That would be a nice start.
That is a fantasy that never quite comes to fruition.
Yeah, we'll see.
Or it would be like last year when I had Gordon and Richarlison, and I'm celebrating, and then it turns out that Calvert-Lewin had touched it with his,
we all remember that
the tip of his knee, right?
Yeah, we all remember. Yeah, brutal. And look, I mean, so last week Dan was bigging up kind of Leon Bailey and the £5 million price point. He's obviously had a great preseason. I know you mentioned you don't pay too much attention in terms of that being predictive, but 5 million, such a cheap way into that the Villa side and sort of what that enables. Is he a player that you looked at at all, Corey, or not?
Absolutely, I did. So Bailey really works when Villa is playing a 4-3-3, and I do think that that's probably going to be their primary formation, but I don't think it's going to be exclusive. I still think they're going to play two at the top occasionally, and I don't think he really fits in that formation. And also, you've got Buendia, who's under there, and it was also a big money signing and looks really good. I'm really a little confused why they signed Coutinho long term, but that's been done. So I think Bailey's a very good option. He's a bit of a risk, and I think starting the season with Neto, who's going to be nailed. The Wolves it looks like they've changed their formation and are going to be more attacking. And with their earlier season fixtures are also exceptional. So that's how I've landed on Neto. Also, the 5, if I had that extra $500,000, it really wouldn't change. I still couldn't get to an $8 million mid anywhere. And so it doesn't really do much for me. So I've gone with Neto with the
fair enough.
Rock.
I like it. I like it. And again, a bit of room to maneuver as well to look elsewhere. The other options at 5.5 are certainly more there than at 5 from the observations that I've done. Okay, cool. Corey, I think that completes the midfield roundup. Let's talk about these forwards then. So you've already mentioned earlier your thoughts on Man City, and they might not be this year's title winners. So consequently, I guess, you've gone for Harry Kane as your vice-captain. He is in that premium bracket, 11.5 million, and Gabriel Jesus completing that, I guess, Arsenal trio, which is not something I've seen so far, but that's really interesting. So what are your thoughts around the front two that you've selected there, Corey, in terms of Harry Kane and Gabriel Jesus, respectively?
Sure. So Kane and Haaland, I think, is very close. I've gone back and forth quite a bit. I thought in the Community Shield that City, I think I might have mentioned that they were changing their formation a bit, I think, to highlight Haaland, which I think will take some time for them to work out. Kane's underlines last year were fantastic once Conte got there. His finishing wasn't quite as good as it was throughout his career. It was the first underperformance, I think, finishing-wise that he's ever had. And I think if he just goes back to normal Harry Kane finishing, you're looking at someone who's going to be challenging for the Golden Boot and still being all in a lot of the creativity numbers as well. So right now I'm on Kane. I could potentially swap it, especially given the game week 2 fixture where I would probably almost certainly, and I think most people have, would be captaining Haaland at home versus Bournemouth. So right now that's really close for me.
That's really interesting. You mentioned that, Corey, about that game week 2, that Bournemouth fixture, and the fear, I guess, of not having him for a game in which he's just going to be captained by presumably everyone who owns him. So do you want to kind of book a transfer in and that
absolutely
feels like
not.
That's risky. Exactly. That feels risky.
Absolutely not. There'll be enough fires to put out, I'm certain, by game week 2 that you're going to try and book that transfer and head into game week 3 with 2. So
for sure, interesting. And look, you've talked at length so far about the Arsenal fixtures. FantasyFootballFix.com agrees it's a nice run to start the season. Gabriel Jesus, look, I mean, in terms of his ownership, it's astronomical, isn't it? I think highest owned player on the game right now. think I'm right in saying, or certainly up there. You just think a sort of no-brainer here, and sort of picks himself.
Yeah, well, I've got 3 Arsenal players all named Gabriel, so that's pretty unique. But I think the thing about Gabriel Jesus is he's 25 years old. His underlying numbers have always been fantastic. His finishing performance, I think, is a bit overstated if you add in his Champions League numbers, where he's actually overproduced his underlying number, underlying data. He actually comes out as still a little bit below average, but not terribly so. And I think him being in a top 5 or 6 attack, he's going to be nailed. And he's just coming into his prime. I think he's really a no-brainer at that price point.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he's a wonderful player. I'm super excited to see how he gets on, and I think it's a great move for him. And working with Arteta, who he knows well as well, should put him in good stead as well. Corey, let's just take a quick look at this this bench of yours as well. So you've got £4 million goalkeeper. That kind of makes sense with Edison, being your premium who you'd play irrespective of fixture. Andreas Pereira in the midfield from signing from Man United, and Nico Williams, and then you've got Taylor there as well. I mean, there weren't tons of options with the money you had left, but do you want to talk about any of those particular options? Any of those that stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Nico Williams and Pereira are both clear values. Williams is going to be playing in an attacking role as a wingback on a team that, yes, is probably going to be fighting relegation, but at that price point, and we've seen with Livramento and Lundstrom in the past that these 4 million defenders who can have some attacking quality are valuable no matter how good the underlying defensive team is. And then Pereira seems like he's going to be a focal point of that attack and be on some corners. So I think that he's also a no-brainer as far as that price point goes.
Yeah, so you're not leaving a lot of money invested in the bench. That seems to be a pretty typical approach of the elite managers, guys. So that might be something for us to think about as well. And look, I mean, so it's an awesome team, Corey. I have to say it's given me a lot of food for thought. But are there any players in there that you're thinking, you know what, this might change before next weekend? And if so, who's kind of most at threat, or do you think this is pretty locked in at this stage?
I definitely Haaland and Kane is still a decision I haven't finalized. Okay. And Leon Bailey is still a potential. I'd like to get some quotes to see how nailed he is. If it seems like he might be nailed the first 3 or 4 weeks, I might swap Neto, or maybe even try and find a way to upgrade Martinelli. I doubt it, but it is possible. So I'll still be keeping my eyes open. Yeah. I think the structure is pretty much there. It's just a 1 or 2 players here and there that are potentially up for grabs.
You don't want to change the 3 Gabriels, man. That's you can't change that now.
Yeah, look, I think it's very unique, right? Triple Arsenal, triple Gabriel. So we'll see how it goes. It's
unique, and look, your rank's there for you to say that's the sort of decision making that's gone into that. So, look, it's been awesome to talk to you, to Corey. I do just want to. I've been pondering this over the last few hours. Man United, right? We don't see any Man United players in this team. Dan wasn't high on Man United last week. No one seems to be. I just wanted to get your final thoughts just before we close, Corey. What do you think about this Man United team under Ten Hag? There are some budget-friendly options in the Man United squad, aren't they? They were terrible last year, but do you think there are any options defensively or in that attack that we could potentially look at in the early part of the season, or are they just a stay away?
I think it's a wait and see for me. I do respect Ten Hag. I think he'll do a very good job, and it's the first quality manager, in my opinion, they've probably had since Ferguson retired. So you're looking at a team that I think he'll figure out how to make that team work. The challenge I have on the attacking side, where Rashford and Sancho look like potential real bargains, especially if Rashford could bounce back, is Ronaldo in that team really he really takes all the shots and he really dominates from an attacking perspective. And until that situation's resolved, I would be hesitant. And on the defensive side, I definitely still have some questions. And there's so many other good options out there that the likes of Dallo and Martinez probably are at a wait and see at this point. I do expect throughout the year that there'll be some viable options. So when things get a little more sorted out.
Yeah, I understand. Look, there's a trust issue there with that squad, isn't there, after last year, and beyond that, isn't there? So it doesn't surprise me that even with some budget-friendly options there, you are deciding with your experience not to kind of go there until we've actually had that trust rebuilt a little bit. So that makes total sense. So, any final thoughts, Corey? Anything else you wanted to cover, or are you happy that we've covered your current Game Week 1 thoughts in full?
Yeah, no, I think it's I think I am where I am. It's an interesting season with the extra wild card. I feel like there are going to be a lot of similar teams early, but I think we're going to see a lot of differentiation when that first wild card is pulled for a lot of folks, which I think will probably be game week 5, 6, right when the transfer window's ending. So I'm really looking forward to the season and seeing how things progress.
And we will be sticking with you and seeing how you do, Corey. And guys, if you do want to do that, you can head over to fantasyfootballfix.com and you can follow Corey's team as he goes through the season and check out all of the other elite managers that we have got on there. It's so cool to be meeting them and getting their experiences and their thoughts captured in video before the start of the season. And we'll be checking in with Corey again throughout this season and seeing how his season pans out. So I just want to say thank you to Corey. Guys, do please leave a comment down below. Do let us know what you think of this squad. Do please share your own teams as well, and we can let you know what we think as well. Do please smash a like on the video. On your way out, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to fantasyfootballfix.com as well if you haven't already done so. And we look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Have a great week, and let's get ready for Game Week 1. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.